I once said my life became so clouded that I didn't see color anymore. And I remember the first time I saw a rainbow again.
Welcome back to another Solucru Talks. I'm Jonathan Sellers, CEO of Solucru. Today we have another special episode where we get to meet our Director of Operations, Simone Bowyers, and learn about her path to becoming Director of Operations at a digital marketing agency. Welcome, Simone.
Thanks, Jonathan.
So you've been on our team for over 5 years now, closer to 6 years, I think. So maybe give a little bit about your background and where you started.
Sure. So my educational background is actually in psychology. From the age of 16, it was a very significant life moment for me and decision in my head that I wanted to become a clinical psychologist. And that's due to my upbringing, and I wanted to be able to provide hope and help to other people who may be in similar situations, that I faced myself growing up. However, that was not my journey to take at the end of the day. I do have my honors in psychology, but that has not been my professional career by any means. I started working at the age of 13, but my first, I would say, full-time position was the year I left school, and I actually started off in the health and wellness industry as a receptionist, and grew into a senior receptionist role, and then management role. And from that stage already, I could tell that I loved organization, I loved processes, and I loved working with people. So I moved into a management position.
Okay.
So that was then obviously taking more responsibility in terms of the staff, stock take, finances, etc., as well as your reception type duties. And then I found myself in a completely different role from what I was doing and from what I've studied, and that was in an accounts position, where I was an accounts administrator for a publishing house, an educational publishing firm. And that's also, so going into an accounts position, as I said, I didn't have a qualification for that, but it didn't stop me from being able to do it.
Yeah.
I just had to learn.
Yeah. Sometimes I think that is a thing that people struggle with, thinking, are they qualified to do something? And fear preventing them from taking the step to actually trying it, because they're like, but I'm not qualified, so I'm not even going to try. And I think so many times in life, the people who are successful are doing something new that there's literally no way they could be qualified for.
Well, I mean, I think that is even showing today in terms of HR and what recruiters are looking for on your CVs.
Yeah.
So for anyone out there who is, in the application process or wanting to update their CV, recruiters aren't really interested in just that qualification and that university that you went to. They're actually looking for you to give metrics as to what you've done, how you've improved things. They don't just want a list of your responsibilities anymore and matching it to your qualification. They want actual metrics. What have you actually done? What is your lived experience?
But so after that, what was your next step?
So this is where it gets a little bit interesting. I was unfortunately medically booked off work for the entirety of 2015 due to various physical medical conditions. I had no choice, and I had to let my body rest and heal. Then I had to eat a huge slice of humble pie and start again.
Yeah.
I had to start again. And I did. Started in 2016, and towards the end of 2015, in an administrative type position, not reception as such, a little bit more advanced, but still the administrative side of things. And then I found myself in an accounts administrator position for a UK-based company. And then I was promoted to operations manager. One of the things that like stands out for me with that specific role is work can be fun. It doesn't have to be this chore that you wake up every morning and you dread, oh, I have to go to work. Work can be, that's the first time I truly felt like that I had experienced in my life, that actually work can be something that's enjoyable.
The one thing I know about you, and I've always known about you, is you're a very like mission-driven person and a very seeking the impact. Like you definitely have that as a personality trait. Like how can you positively impact whatever it is that you're involved with? So I think as an outside, as someone's outside perspective, I think that has driven you to these positions. If I'm just, saying how I perceive it, because I think it's such an important thing for you, almost like you attract this responsibility because it's so important to you, I think.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense.
Did you have another position between then and starting with us?
I did.
Okay. What was that?
That was another big slice of humble pie for me in my life. That something happened again, and I unfortunately had to leave that position that I was in. Then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And it was now time for me to get back on that horse and start again. I really started at the bottom. I felt like I was just leaving school. I started au pairing again for the first time.
For the international audience, or just people who generally don't know about au pair, could you just...
Yeah, sure. So basically, for me, what it would involve is there was a young girl that I was responsible for looking after. So it would include fetching her from school, her daily activities, cooking for her, doing her homework, really just taking care of her. And that's kind of where I started out again. And then I went back into an administrative type role. And then a friend said to me, Simone, you should get on Upwork. And I'm an introvert. I really am an introvert. And the idea of Upwork frightened me like you cannot believe. To put myself out there, that would mean I have to create a profile and say, hey, I'm Simone, look at me. Which is not that doesn't come naturally for me to advertise. Yeah. So, and she was just on my case, just do it, just do it, just see what happens. I thought, okay, fine, I'll do it. So I did my little profile on Upwork, and then Solucru, or what was then Spark Outbound, came along, and it was a part-time position at the time, part-time project manager. I just couldn't. I remember the interview so well. I was so incredibly nervous for it. I didn't know what to expect. It was my first time liaising with the American culture. I had experienced a lot of like UK experience, Australian experience, European experience, but not so much American. So it was my very first time dealing with an American culture. If it wasn't for COVID, I don't think I would be where I am today, because I wouldn't have been in the position where I would have looked on something like Upwork for a remote working position, because that wasn't really a thing prior to COVID. It was the wildest thing sitting in South Africa, in Cape Town, in like the southernest part of South Africa, and having a team. All my teammates were based in the States. Never met them in person, but felt like I knew them because we had calls virtually every day at that stage. I was actively involved in all the client calls, all the client meetings, so I felt like I knew the clients. And it took some adapting. I think it was also your first time hiring. Well, no, you had a Philippines team, but your first time hiring in South Africa.
Yes.
at that stage. So there's obviously learning curves that come with that on both sides. But I think as a whole, if you reflect back onto that process, it went relatively smoothly. There were no major hiccups. There was, nothing terrible happened. I look at my start with Solucru, like restarting my career.
Like picking up where it should have been.
Yeah.
And I think that's a thing, like a lot of people in their career will have starts and stops. Things happen. So it could be an external thing. It could be like you've had health issues that have interrupted trajectory. Some people, obviously, it's just like an external thing. It's like the company they work with has downsized, and then it's hard to find another position in their space. So I think a lot of people can resonate with this. We found you, I guess, and you found us, and then you got onto this trajectory, which now for 5 or 6 years was, like you just said, putting yourself out there, doing something you would have never thought of doing before, doing something that you even maybe just thought was crazy, like it's never going to work, whatever. But it's totally a different thought process, like a different way of thinking about it. I think when we ended up bringing you on was into COVID. But before COVID, we had started doing these tests where we were thinking, at that time Spark Outbound was our brand name, but can Spark Outbound, can Solucru become a global resource, right, for marketing? And so we started basically doing tests where we would do these contact tests in different countries. And what was so strange was South Africa was off the charts different than every other country on the response rates and the friendliness of responses, where some places were just crazy negative, responses or no responses. That raised my view. I'm like, what's going on in South Africa? Like, why is this happening? So the way we found you is we knew we needed somebody in project management. So that was the thing specifically at that time. We had a lot of projects. We needed to have somebody who can really just focus and make sure it's all getting done, because there was a lot of stuff to do, and it was kind of a little overwhelming for our staff complement at the time. That's when things got more serious with South Africa, because then that's where it's really like, okay, as an agency, we have to like rethink how this is running, how this is built, what are we trying to accomplish? And so then that's where I believe I tasked you to say, what is it like? What will be our process to go into South Africa officially and start hiring people?
Yes. So we had to look at, do we open up an entity in South Africa as the first step, and have a legal entity in South Africa in order to have employees in South Africa? Do we employ them full time at the time through for Spark Outbound? Or do we use like an employer of record, or do we do freelancers, continue with Upwork? What's the better avenue? For me personally, and I think I've always advocated for this when it comes to us making decisions in terms of hiring internationally or in a different continent, different country, I do prefer personally that the company has an entity and that the contract is with the specific company that the employee will be working for. I think it helps boost morale. It helps with a sense of safety and security, knowing this company is legit. There's nothing fishy going on here. It gives it more substance, I feel. So the thing with South Africa is that we have, for the employee, it's brilliant, but for the employer, it can be incredibly challenging. We have very, very stringent labor laws. And that was going to be the challenge that we would face, that we would hit. And how do we work with that in order to accomplish the goals that we have as a company? If I think of challenges, because every role is going to come with its challenges, one of the most heartbreaking things to do is have to let someone go.
Yeah.
For anyone out there who has had the misfortune of being retrenched, laid off, let go, for whatever reason, I want them to know it doesn't come easy to make that decision. For me personally, my life does not just carry on as normal, as if nothing's happened. It's a significant thing that's had to take place. And it has its impact on everybody involved in that process and in that decision. That is an incredibly challenging task to have to take on and handle. And especially if in that case it was you by yourself having to sort of go through that process as an individual. It's incredibly challenging.
Yeah, and I think too, like we, generally are a relatively small team, and like to have to do that, like everybody well.
Yeah.
So it's not. I think it's different when you're at a corporate and you have 500 employees and you're laying off 50 employees and you've never even talked to those people, and they're just that is where people do feel like they're numbers and things like that. But when it is people that you work with and things, like their personal interests and hobbies and
they're a real
like
person.
That. Yeah, it's like somebody that you actually care about. And yeah, I mean, I've had the misfortune of having to do that a few times. And
no, it's incredibly challenging. And you've just raised something so important that I did want to touch on, because I feel that people is also at the heart of operations, if operations is something that you're wanting to get into. So I don't see my psychology degrees as wasted as such, because obviously it's all about people. I believe that operations is about people at the end of the day. Yes, we have AI that's coming into effect, and we can utilize that. But at the end of the day, we still have humans. I will always advocate for very, very strongly for my teams, the people that I work with. I never forget the human element. And I think it's so important that as we evolve as a culture, as a race, as everything, that we don't forget the human element.
Sometimes you just have to step back with all the head down focus that you have of trying to make things happen and say but we are doing something so impactful. And I think with the website projects we're cranking out, we're helping a lot of entrepreneurs right now, specifically with the projects we're launching right now, to be able to realize their vision to then hopefully grow, hire more employees, and so on and so forth.
It needs to come from within yourself. You need to find that value yourself. But I think as well, we can find value in every day.
Yeah.
If we're open to it, and if we take that moment, that pause, that time to just reflect briefly, it doesn't have to be a long, withdrawn out process. We can find value in everything. And I wanted to mention something earlier when you were speaking about the fear. And I don't know if you know, one of the acronyms for fear is face everything and rise. So if you are struggling with fear and you're scared to take that next step, or you don't know what that next step is, face it and rise.
Yeah.
The other option is to run. I'm not going to say the whole saying, because
I can get it. I think I know what it is. Yeah, but this is a family show.
Yes.
No, I think I got that one. That's powerful. That is definitely powerful. It's face everything. And sometimes that's hard to do.
It's really
hard to do it, especially like you're saying, you've had to do that multiple times through your journey. But you've done it, and here we are. And so that's where I want to shift gears now, because I do want to talk about now, what we have put together is what I will consider and maybe admit is very complicated. So now we have so Solucru is based in the US as the parent company, but now we have these different entities, right? So we have a UK entity, we have our entity in South Africa, which now we've had for years. So now this one is it's always, they're all challenging from the, like, for instance, tax perspective and compliance perspective. Things are constantly changing, but I would say, because of your experiences, this is our more almost even for me, this is our more, I don't know the word I'm thinking of right now, but I would say comfortable one, because we've actually done the most in South Africa. Our most recent entity is our Panama entity. You know, we could not manage all this ourselves, so we had to find trustworthy partners in all of these places, and then so then there's a mixture. Then we rely on them for some things. We handle some things ourselves.
Right.
There's differences in banking. There's differences in payroll. Differences, obviously, in accounting.
Benefits,
Compliance requirements. What would be some of the recommendations that you would make when they're considering this? Things to just know, maybe, or
Okay.
things they should be considering.
So, I mean, I think first off, if you're considering an entity, so you have different options when it comes to staffing in a different country or location. The first thing to know about that is that there's a cost involved for opening up the entity in the first place. So I would say definitely to do your research and know what those initial costs are going to be. And then know that it's not just a once-off cost. Like, I can speak specifically for South Africa because it's the country that I have the most knowledge on. But if you look at the recurring costs that we have, there's constantly taxes due in some form, whether it be employee or employer taxes, compensation funds, I'll use that word, that we have to contribute towards on a monthly basis. There's always something. So I think do your research and know in that specific location, what are the legal obligations as an employer? What do you have to provide to your employees?
I think from us, if we ask, like, why did we choose the countries we chose? Obviously, we discussed South Africa, but when we discussed Panama, it's because we do see an opportunity in LATAM markets to offer our services, but also in addition to that, we geographically, like the time zone component, and then the type of roles that we were looking to fill and the market in Panama align very well. So what I mean is, because of the type of companies that operate in Panama, there is a very high quality of employees and a concentration of employees who fulfill the type of roles we envisioned originally. What we did not know is that there would be so many more insanely talented people in different capacities in Panama. So it was originally like one motivation, and we were like searching this path because we knew we needed to close the gap and provide more support to North America, South America markets from a timing perspective. I guess if you had to, I know we've discussed a lot here. So we've discussed your path, right? So your personal path. And so in your path, you've had starts and stops. You've had to reinvent yourself, like figure out who am I really, right? And that question has been forced upon you a couple times, like, who am I? And then you've risen and climbed your way back to where you are now. Our company has done that, right?
Yes.
So it's not a linear path always, and I think that's a key element of your story. I think that's a key element of our story.
Nothing is ever wasted. Progress is progress, in whatever form that may be. And I think if I were to leave whoever is listening out there with anything, it would be something I try to live by is, I don't know everything and I never will. If I ever reach a day where I truly believe I know everything, I'm in serious trouble.
Yeah.
You don't know everything, and you never will, and that's okay, and that's part of being human. Remain accountable. Accountability is huge. Remain humble. And stay inquisitive. Ask the whys. Why? Figure things out. Stay curious. Be open to the value, the purpose that you can find in everyday life, whether it be your work, your home life, shopping, doing errands, whatever it is. Find the value. Stop and look at that rainbow. I once said my life became so clouded, for lack of a better word, that I didn't see color anymore. And I remember the first time I saw a rainbow again. And now every time I see a rainbow, it's something simple, but I stop and I take a pause and I think how lucky I am that I can see that rainbow and see the color. And it makes me take pause and think back. And I'll end with this, something my stepdad always says, is the day he stops noticing Table Mountain, he knows he has a problem. When he starts taking it for granted.
Man, I thought that when I was driving here to today. I was driving and looking at Table Mountain. I was thinking something very similar to that. So no, that is interesting. And Ian, your stepdad, we will have to do a braai again soon. So Ian, I know you'll watch this. I'll see you next time I'm here. All right. Well, if you're still here with us, thanks for watching. Thank you, Simone, for sharing your story.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Yep. Please like and subscribe and click the bell notification the bell so you'll get notified when our next Solucru Talks or any of our other videos get posted. You know, if you're watching this and you're looking at asking yourself, like, am I going in the right direction? Is my career or entrepreneurial journey, the right one, or am I in the right place for my age, or whatever that question is that you're asking? Just always keep in mind that there's countless other people who've asked themselves that question often. There's countless other people who have had to overcome challenges and, hurdles in their life, and you just got to keep going, and you just got to keep, maybe it's reinventing yourself, maybe it's just keep pushing, but
face the fear.
Face the fear, exactly. See you next time.